Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Email me directly for pricing, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a watch launched in 2009, and it was launched that year immediately being awarded the GPHG Alligator, impressively taking Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking as the best watch of the year, and that in a competition run by the Swiss in Geneva. That's how good this watch was, and it is still stunning. The timepiece, 42 millimeters in rose gold, to be precise, because we are in Germany here. It is 41.9 millimeters in diameter by 13 millimeters thick by 49.7 millimeters lug tip to lug tip with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now this watch is precious metal inside, precious metal outside. We'll throw it on my wrist and get an impression of how it wears. It is large for a dress watch. Full figured, but not excessively thick. It will fit underneath the cuff. Across the wrist, it's fairly broad, so I'd say don't really wear this watch on a wrist smaller than 15 centimeters circumference. Again, you can see it on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It's a big boy, and that's because there's a lot of hardcore engineering inside. This watch is about as small as it could possibly be, given what sits inside the case. Taking a quick look at the hardware and the software, the strap, the software features large rectangular scale alligator leather. It is in a dark brownish red with some bolstering to give it thickness, a monotone stitch, a folded edge, and on the underside you can see it's gator on the top, calfskin on the bottom, and then it features a pin buckle that's faceted externally, polished entirely, nicely branded with the recesses of the Lange name media blasted. Then has a few features, starting with this little retaining bar. So if you're like me and you have a small wrist and you do strap down to the smallest hole or you even make a smaller hole, that little retaining bar prevents the strap from getting pinned down so tightly that it's hard to extract. Second, you have a elevated bridge. So you have these two stanchions, and then you have the bridge in the center, and the bridge is elevated so that the strap sits inside the buckle rather than stacking up underneath the buckle. You see how that diminishes the thickness on the wrist? That's what's going on there. The case is familiar Lange. Round with sheer sides, a domed bezel, and then lugs that are stepped out from the case band. You also have a crown, which here you can see is dramatically knurled. This is not a generic Lange crown, and it's not a generic Lange crown location. You can see it says Lange Sohne on the outside of the crown. The dial is made of sterling silver, AG925. It is precious metal inside a precious metal case. So rose gold, sterling silver dial, and then the dial is galvanized this silver white color with a light frosted opaline finish. What you see at the top of the dial is a lovely vaulted logo, the statement of origin, and then a power reserve. You have up and then you have down. Off ab, and we are winding towards up, fully wound. This manual wind movement has a 36-hour power reserve because it is power intensive. We have jumping hours, so it's a jump hour. We have jumping tens of minutes and jumping single-digit minutes. We also have this time bridge. So we have a component on the dial side that frames the time at 6 and then at 9 and 3. This is actually part of the movement. You can see a black polished screw holds it in place, and this is an uncolored sapphire that acts as the central pivot for the discs bearing the minutes. We have a slightly sunken register for the seconds, and you will note the watch does include a hacking or stop seconds function, and you can easily set it forward or backwards with its time quick setting mechanism, which is a great piece of theater in and of itself. The watch beats away at a lazy and traditional 18,000 vibrations per hour, so in that regard, a little bit like the datograph. I'll let you see the jump one more time because I know you're dying to see what that's going to look like. This is caliber L043, which means that work started on this movement back in 2004. That's how the naming scheme works at Lange, and 3 means it would have been the third movement they started working on in 2004. On the reverse side, you can see that big slow balance beaten away to pocket watch like 2.5 hertz. It has an overcoil hairspring, so it keeps good time in any physical position, regardless of where gravity is oriented. So that is a rare feature on Lange watches, generally reserved for flagship pieces. It also has 5-position adjustment. That's more common on Lange watches, but it's the high horology standard that you'll also see on chronometers. The barrel is immense, and it features a Maltese cross-style stopworks, so it will not run if it doesn't have enough energy to jump the minutes display. The stopworks will stop it. The stopworks will also prevent overwinding by offering resistance. Now, there is a tremendous amount of power, I should say energy, that's converted to power inside of that mainspring, and it's so strong that you can feel it when you wind the watch. You can feel the resistance as something special. One end of the mainspring is actually anchored to the base plate to provide a base of support against which to push. It's that forceful. There is a mechanism here that's a very complex remontoir d'égalité. The 68 joule movement has a flow of power from, okay, so you can see from the crown wheel through an intermediate wheel, through the barrel, which you can see moves underneath its cover. And then from the barrel, it goes through a train where it jumps the minutes first. There's a pinwheel that acts as an air brake to slow down the transmission of energy. And then you can see there's a second locking lever here. Every minute it unlocks once and transfers that, and that's exactly what it does, what you just saw, and it transfers 1 minute's worth of energy to a hairspring between two third wheels. You can see that little hairspring underneath my finger, and it's that hairspring rather than the mainspring barrel that actually drives the escapement. So regardless of how much energy is in there or how explosive the burst of energy through the jumping mechanism, the mainspring will never directly drive the escapement, and that is why it's able to keep good time in spite of the forces at work here. A very impressive technical achievement. It is both a constant force device and a jumping digital display, and for that matter, it's a power reserve. You can also see it is beautifully finished in ways that do not need to be elaborated, but you can see freehand engraving on the half bridge for the escape wheel and the balance. Everything that's turning black as I tilt the movement is black polished. That's finished with diamond paste. There's solarization on the wheels leading up to the barrel, and then you can see glasuta stripes across the nickel, copper, zinc bridge, often known as German silver. It's the copper that gives it its golden hue. We have both blued screws and black polished screws, and then if you look on the edge of the bridges, you can see mirrored anglage with engine turning on the base plate and much, much, much more. All of this water resistant to 30 meters. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.